everyone. Just wanted to come in real quick and give a little beginner message that this is a video that really won't have any video in it, essentially. It's more raid content, just to give you something to listen to during raids, not to distract you from looking at your phone or your tablet or whatever you're playing raids on. But yeah, it's pretty good long content, and we have pretty good discussion about a lot of underused characters. So I hope you enjoy the video, and thank you. What's going on, everybody? I'm here with Mr. Zubaz today, the king of the mystics, to talk about the bottom of the barrel tunes and why you probably want to really bend over into that barrel and grab a few of them. Mr. Zubaz, hello.
Hello. Good evening. How are we doing tonight?
You are kind of making the rounds lately.
I have been, yeah.
Like, you've been on like everybody's stream. I think you were on the Mystic RB5 thing with me. Anything else you've been on lately? Don't say drugs.
Well, I did M4 stream. I've got a kind of an outstanding, probably going to do a WROL appearance pretty soon. So, just getting the name out there a little bit more.
Boom, roasted. I love to see it. I love to see more people in the community. Whatchamacallit? There's actually a lot of content creators lately that have been like kind of throwing their name into the YouTube community. There's a couple people that are like thousands of subscribers on YouTube and just throw a video into DC Legends every now and again, and I'm like, dude, who are you? Like, I don't see your name anywhere ever.
Yeah, I think it's good though. It's like for every, comment on Reddit about how the game is about to die, it seems like there's a new person like creating content about it. So
right.
Seems like it's a thriving community right now.
I really don't like those conspiracy theories. Like, people have brought that conspiracy up like every month for the last like 5 months. And yeah. I'm like, guys, there's no indication that the game is dying. Please don't scare people away from it by saying that.
Right.
But even so, we're here to talk about the trash tier, the C tier, those bottom barrel tunes. Because you and I kind of have an affinity towards them. There what are your obviously you have thoughts about tier lists, right? But what are your
in general, I don't like tier lists. I think that they tend to inhibit creativity a little bit. I think a lot of people in the community complain about the meta being stale. And then when you introduce a tier list that does become a hot button topic every single month, it effectively reinforces that meta. It's like, okay, well, this is what the top players say that I need to do to win. So why would I do anything other than go for these S tier characters? And why would I use anything else? So I think it does create sort of a circular problem a little bit. And then just in general, I've always just kind of disagreed. I've, like you have, I have found a lot of really good comps with the tunes at the bottom of that list.
Right. Because what people don't realize is, yes, these S tier tunes are there for a reason, but there's so many characters in like even the C tier, the B tier that complement them, or maybe a combo of a B tier tune and a C tier tune like far outclass one of the S tier characters. There is a lot of, I completely agree with you. The stifling of creativity is huge. The fact that there's so many prims out there in the community that right. And just only want to build S tier. If anyone who doesn't know, Prim of the Owls is a very meta chasing player who I don't dislike. He definitely says some wild things every now and again. So I see a lot of that though, where it's like, oh well, this tier list popped out, and I don't have those characters, so that's what I need to go for. And I'm like, but in the meantime, you could go for these characters that will help you like be really good. Either way.
Yeah, and I think people get obsessed with like when a rework or when a new tune is released, and they automatically are like, okay, what tier are they? Are they going to be S? Are they going to be A? And if they're not that high to begin with, it can almost sink a tune before they like really get started, which I think is problematic in the long run.
I completely agree with you. I think there's definitely some characters in the trash tier and in the C tier that were misplaced due to just a poor first impression.
Right.
And whatchamacallit, there are so many people, I swear to God. And it's kind of annoying a little bit because just like you said, these people, as soon as the rework drops, like, all right, what's their legendary order? What's their tier? How good are they? And it's like, guys, they just dropped.
Right.
Give us some time. Let us kind of practice with them a little bit. We'll tell you. We'll get there. Even so, let's go ahead and just kind of jump in to some characters. Do you want to start in the trash tier or the C tier?
Let's start all the way at the bottom. Let's start in the trash tier and see what we can salvage.
All right, fair enough. So let's start off the bat with one of your number one used characters, Raven. Why do you like her? Why do you think she does not belong in trash tier? All that good jazz.
So Raven is a character that I always liked from the comics, and so I was always going to be biased and try to force myself to use her a little bit more. And then I find myself not forcing it at all. Her retaliation is excellent. I know that silence as a debuff is not super popular. People think that it's kind of a weak debuff in general. I don't think they realize that is something that can shut like Black Flash down. People complain about Black Flash, and it's like, okay, if Black Flash can't use his 2 or his 3, he's a pretty pedestrian character. So she silences enemies that hit her pretty much every single time. It's a pretty low percentage, but it happens very, very often. So I think that's a big thing. The critical chance is huge. Just the idea that they can sort of limit how many crits that your enemies are going to have is pretty big. Her first skill does a lot of damage if she does have a debuff on her. Her overheal, I think, is possibly the strongest in the game. I'm hesitating to say it because I might be forgetting somebody right now, but I actually think when she uses her 2 skill on another character, that is the maximum that anybody can overheal anybody else in the game. And when we talk about just synergy and everything, I think she's going to come back in a huge way with Superwoman this month.
I'm sitting here just silently nodding at everything you said. And like, I don't know if you were one of like, you probably don't watch most of my videos because you know what the hell you're talking about. But I did a 2D tune on Raven. She was one of the very first characters I did a 2D tune for, and she performed that entire time. Like, if anyone watches my videos, they know I don't like do long edits. Most of the time, it's all one like recording. There's no like I don't cut in and out to like only give you the best fights. Raven is like 8 out of 10 the entire video. She, like you said, she's doing the retaliation all the time. She's silencing. Her overheal is absolutely astonishing. And you mentioned the crit chance down. I just wanted to tell people, because they probably don't know anymore, because not many people probably look at her kit, but one of her passives is all enemies automatically gain a negative 45% critical chance. So like it's not a debuff. You can't see the debuff, but it is just put into their stats while she's alive. And I think that is hella awesome. That, first of all, there's already characters out there that most characters in the game like don't have 45% crit chance to begin with. Like, you're essentially removing crits from the enemy team at that point, because only assassin build characters like Talia al Ghul have a 47% crit chance. So even with Raven on the team, they only have a 2% crit chance at that point. So unless they're getting buffs to crit you, you're essentially removing it, which is huge.
Yeah, and she's got low HP, and I know we're kind of in the age of evasions, we're in the age of Harley and everything. Her 3 skill with the can't miss and remove 10 debuffs if they have evasion ups is that actually really comes in handy. If she's enraged, it's not going to do a ton. If she is enraged, she's at least doing more damage. But that is, they gave her that in her rework because Harley was so prevalent at the time. And that's something that it's like a bonus. I don't consider it a main part of her kit, but it gives her survivability in this current meta right now. And I just, I love using her all the time. I think her alternate skin is one of the best with as well. So when I look at the other characters that they have in B and C tier, especially among Mystics, I can't justify Raven in the trash tier at all.
No, not at all. Nope. And like whatchamacallit, I think she pairs probably extremely well with Enchantress.
Yes.
With her heal, the negative crit chance. Like Enchantress is already annoying to deal with because of the team-wide damage immunity, but like throw Raven in the mix and you've got a very annoyingly hard to kill team already.
Yeah, and I run that team a lot in Red Alerts. I'd say the only downside of that team is that if it is possible, you do kind of want 1 or 2 debuffs hanging around on Raven, and Enchantress flips them back most of the time, so it does kind of downplay her damage a little bit. But for all the reasons you said, they do work extremely well together.
Yeah. Okay. Anything left to say about Raven?
I don't think so. I think that's so Raven.
That's so Raven. I like that. That's pretty smart. I watched that show as a kid. That was a good show. So let's move into Mr. Beetle, a character that everyone believes, even including potentially yourself, that he is right where he belongs. And in my humble opinion, I'll start this one. In my humble opinion, I think that Beetle, he only excels at a very specific niche, which is true. However, he is exceedingly good at that niche. Like, if anyone watches my videos, which I'm going to say that probably 20 more times in this video, everyone knows that Hal Jordan is the bane of my existence because 90% of the time I'm using debuff characters. I'm using I don't like Pew Pew. Pew Pew does not suit my playstyle. I like to strategize and beat you with fun teams, and most of those fun teams to me are debuff handy. Hal Jordan is like, he negates my teams essentially. And at the end of my last Enchantress video, or I think it was Enchantress, it could be someone else, but I throw in Blue Beetle just for shits and giggles, right? And the boy smashed everything. Like, it was a Hal Jordan team, and I wrecked house. I absolutely destroyed. And he was the contributing factor. He was not the he wasn't just like there to get rid of the debuff immunity and move on. Like, he was the actual damage dealer the entire match. And it kind of reignited my interest in him a little bit, and I've been using him here and there every time I see a Hal Jordan team, and it's almost consistent. Almost every Hal Jordan fight, he's the reason I win, and I absolutely love that. And because of that reason alone, I think he should be minimum C tier, probably C tier. Yeah, I don't think he's probably good enough for B tier, but C tier is probably where he belongs.
I mean, I see it, and I see what they were trying to do with his kit. I think it's one of those classic WB contradictory kits where he excels so much against shields, but then like his basic also can ignore shields, and then once the shields are gone, he becomes sort of even less useful. He, I was mentioning this while we were talking before. I just prefer special damage blues, and so he, for the most part, doesn't fit into what I'm doing. But I understand what they were going for with him, and I think he's a good option for all the reasons you described against shields, which are super prevalent now.
I don't think his kit is contradictory because when he hits under the shield, right? He's leaving the shield there so he can continue to benefit from it.
Right.
Which is, I think, in my opinion, the biggest asset of him. So because anytime anyone gains shield, he can buff up. Anytime like he chooses to buff up actively, as long as that shield still exists, he'll get more buffs. So
Right.
I think that that was done intentionally and it works for him. But I can see what you're kind of saying. Even so, because he's just so good at that niche, I don't think he belongs in trash, but I mean, that's really all. Other than Cersei, though, he also has the fastest AoE buff clear.
Yes, which
So
is super
that's very, very useful. The utility exists, guys. And so does the damage against shields. So I don't think he
And
belongs there.
he's got a new movie coming out. They say allegedly soon. So maybe he's just a stat adjustment away from being an actual player again.
I'm pretty sure. I think isn't it like 2 years out since it's live action?
Probably. Yeah.
Probably. But let's move into another trash tier tune. Let's talk about the Atom. So the Atom had a very poor introduction into the game. Everyone saw his like model and they were like, "Oh crap, that's the Atom. Hell yeah." And then a couple people were upset that his legendary was Ryan Choi, but he's still Ray Palmer. That's fine. That's a valid thing to be upset about. But whatchamacallit, I think he just had a poor introduction into the game. His passives are maybe a little garbage with the revive. I'm gonna look his kit up real quick. But I've been using him lately, and his buff, or not his buff, excuse me, his basic attack, Atomic Punch, actually does significant damage for me. Like, actually a lot of damage. And I feel like that is really potent, especially with his second passive, which is actually way better than I remembered it. It's like he gains a shit ton of turn meter anytime an enemy buffs, right? So,
Yeah.
and he also gifts that turn meter to an ally. Like, I think that he's actually a good character. He's just like, a couple of his abilities are bad. Like his first passive, the revive, it doesn't have a very high chance and it doesn't really do a lot for the person who got revived. So you can't really count on that. And if you can't count on a passive, then why have it? And also he's a red against that does damage against stamina characters, which I guess Doomsday, or not Doomsday, Darkseid has a lot of those, and maybe he'll be viable soon again. We'll see.
Yeah, I
But
think that's like a classic thing where he may have a lot of increased utility now. I know you and Pingzo were talking about that, and I agree. I mean, on paper, it makes perfect sense. His kit looks like it was actually designed against Darkseid before Darkseid's kit was released.
exactly, yes. So I mean, I don't know how long they've been planning to release him. I don't know how far in advance that they plan that stuff, but this kit could be the defining factor after a few weeks of the siege.
Yeah, I mean, it's you get the bonus for all the buffs, which Darkseid is buffing like to the end of time,
Right.
and Darkseid teams are naturally going to do that. It punishes stamina ups. He's got the affinity advantage. It even fits with the lore where Adam was one of the few people in some of the various stories that was able to take down Darkseid, actually. So I don't know that they reverse engineered it like this, but it certainly has unfolded nicely.
Very nicely. So I'm gonna keep an eye on him for the rest of the month. Mine is only level 70, but I want to get him to 80 now because of this. And I might accidentally L5 him as well. We'll see about that one, but we don't really need to go super in depth with him. But I think that he's definitely someone to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah. I think Miracle will leave trash tier. I think there's a couple in there that do make sense to me. Some that there's kind of rumors that the trash tier characters get a little bit more publicity, and so they get reworked a little bit more quickly. I would love reworks of some of these characters that are down there. So, hopefully soon.
Okay, fair enough. I think that's probably good for trash tier. There's a couple more that might not belong there, but I don't think they're not very important enough to move forward with. So let's go into the C tier. And we're just gonna start at the top and move our way down. Do you have any thoughts on Ocean Master?
Yeah, I mean, I like Ocean Master. That was a month in the game that I went very big on. I finished in the top 10 that siege because I was after the Black Mantis shards. So I actually wound up buying a lot that month. So I have a ton of Orm shards just kind of lying around. I have not rebirthed him, but I've always considered it. He's an incredible support toon. I wish that his kit was a little bit more cohesive, I'd say. I think it almost tries to do too much. It's kind of based on the speed ups. The silence is really cool. He's got turn meter down. The double attack is a little bit wonky. It does so much. And I think that's why he's in the C tier is basically people forget how many things his kit does.
I can agree with you. I did rebirth him. I have enough shards for rebirth 3. He's only rebirth 1 for me right now because every time I want to do a shield team, he's always one of my first picks, but I can never there's always a missing link and I just don't know who to fill it with. And whatchamacallit. But I actually fought an Orm recently and I was actually kind of annoyed by him. And I thought that was a very big positive. Because every time I got a turn, it felt like my character was getting silenced, and I was like, "Why? How are you silenced right now? Like, what did I do to silence you?" And I forget that it was Orm's passive. Like every time I buff up, I get silenced, and then his out of turn attack also silences me. And if you pair him with Clayface, then your entire team is essentially silenced like 80% of the time. So you can't taunt, you can't heal. There's so many things you can no longer do. You can't use a support ability and grant turn or true sight to somebody. There's no good move at that point. And I think that his utility alone should boost him up to B tier, despite the fact that his damage is less than wanted. But I think he's phenomenal.
I think that he with the right gear set would actually do a lot of good for him. But so that being said. So, I mean, early reports on Superwoman is that she is doing a lot of damage, and she really needs those silences to be flying around. Those two together, basically, he will ensure that she is always dealing with silenced enemies, and she will provide the damage. I think that is like a match made in heaven, those two.
Yeah. Her basic grants her crit chance and crit damage ups if the target is silenced. And she applies silence plenty herself as well. But she's a slow character, and Orm is definitely not a slow character. So
no, he provides those speed ups. He can make up for her deficiencies and vice versa, I think.
Yeah. If you had to grant him, if he got a rework, what damage type would you prefer him as? I know you said special earlier, but what would suit Orm the best?
So you're basically suggesting that these mixed kits are not good, which I agree with. Like that they should either be physical or special, and he's a split.
Right.
I I guess I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. If I was thinking about the lore, I would go special. But in this particular instance, I could really go either way.
Honestly, I love Orm. I love his kit. I do think that they made a mistake with the animation on his third ability, just
Yes.
because they kind of stole it from the movie, kind of like how Wonder Woman DOJ has a stolen animation from the movie, and
Right.
I think that was the wrong move because, um, if he's got lightning that comes out of his trident, let's use that. Let
Yeah.
let's make him a mage character that he's kind of a coward, isn't he? Like he likes to fight from afar and not really be put at risk, right? Am I correct on that?
Oh, that is absolutely correct. He is a planner. He is a master schemer, but he is not great, one on one.
Right. So he shouldn't really have any like physical attacks to begin with.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. And in the comics recently, he does get a little bit more of a magic bend to him. Atlantis tends to be pretty magical in general. So I would think special damage, but I could go either way.
Oh, you just cut out.
Cut out. You got me?
Okay. Yes, I got you now. Um, yeah, okay. I do want to say though, also one more final note on Orm is that I think the double hit on his third is just weird. It's like
Very weird.
you don't have an animation to hit somebody else, so why would you include that? Um, I don't know. It's a weird move overall. But moving on. Let's go down into I always want to rebirth this character. Like he is on the like tippity top of the list, but like I always pick the more practical character, the one that fits my current team before I do him. But Freddy Shazam is someone who I don't think necessarily belongs in C tier. There's definitely a reason why I think he's there. And I think that's because he lacks guaranteed anything, and he also lacks any form of sustain. Um,
I have another
and
theory as to why he is in the C tier, and I believe it is because people they literally don't understand what affinity up and down and that like how that works. Uh,
I currently
yeah,
don't either.
yeah, I mean, and that's fine. I mean, it's if you have strength up, it's okay. I'm gonna hit harder now, right? Like that's very easily digestible, very easy to understand. Agility down, they have less defense. All those kind of things. Affinity up and down is harder to see, and it's only like obvious when you've got a stack of them and all of a sudden you are literally doing zero damage and you're like, I don't understand, I just did a regular hit just like always, why did it show up as literally no damage? And then you realize how effective that those can be.
Yes and no. So every time it's explained to me, the affinity buff, resist and affinity attack or whatever the two types are, it is always described in the stupidest manner, and I'm not like trying to shit on people who are describing it to me. I'm trying to shit on the devs who created it because it gives you an extra bonus against the affinity that you already have a bonus against. And
Right.
at least that's the way everyone keeps describing it to me. And I'm like, that makes no sense whatsoever. I already have a bonus against them. I want a bonus against the ones I'm weak against. I want protection from the affinity I'm weak against, not the one I'm already strong against.
Yeah, and I mean the only reason like it shows up for me is if I'm attacking Penguin with my blues and I can't do anything anymore.
Right. I love Penguin actually because of that. But like Penguin and Freddy, I actually love together. They're great together. Um, but that's a whole other story. Whatchamacallit? Where is Penguin on this list? Is he C tier?
They have him in B.
Oh, thank God. Okay. He deserves that spot. Anyway, um, yeah, so I guess the affinity ups are probably a reason, but the kid does damage. One, he does like a good chunk of damage. Like it is not poor at all. And he's got a retaliation, which isn't guaranteed, which is another reason why he might be in C tier. But aside from the affinity ups and downs that he causes, he also applies heal and buff immunity, which those are like S tier buff or debuffs in everyone's humble opinion. They're always useful. And whatchamacallit, those are reason enough for me to believe that he belongs at least in B tier. But I understand that he's also very low health character, and he doesn't really have any way to sustain himself, which is unfortunate. But the kid himself is always on my like in the back of my head saying, "Hey, you should rebirth this guy next time." And I'm honestly considering just doing it, so I'd stop thinking about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I mean, to me, I think buff immunity might be like the most important debuff that there kind of is right now. Especially with Darkseid coming and that kind of thing. That's as good as it gets to me. That has always been what has made Red Robin an A tier character for me. So the fact that he can apply it so much and so often on retaliation, I do think he's a good character.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We can't really. It's hard to debate the WROL boys because they're like, no, he's actually shit tier. We're gonna move him down one because you decided to argue with us, and I'm like, okay, well. Exactly. So whatever. We'll move on from that as well. Let's talk about Captain Boomerang, who is kind of just been cast aside ever since. Even on his debut, people were like, "Oh, he's so cool." Oh, never mind. And he just kind of fell to the wayside. And he did have a very poor first impression as well, kind of like a lot of these characters. But people thought he kind of got shadow buffed because he didn't do really a whole lot of damage right away. But after I geared him like 3 weeks into his month, and he hit really hard for me. Like he did very good damage and still does to this day. His second ability one shots blues every single time, essentially. And whatchamacallit, he's not exactly like the speediest tune, but he's not slow either. I think it's like 114, 115, something like that.
Right.
And whatchamacallit, he's anti-speed. He's the first person to have empowered strength ups. So all in all, I think it's a balanced kit. He's got survivability. I don't see any reason why he should be in C tier, essentially.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, for me, one of the biggest things was all of the speed down characters were always energy for the most part. You had your Mirror Master, your Clayface, your Captain Cold, all that thing. And then Boomerang came, and all of a sudden he's a physical character doing a lot of damage, also providing speed downs. I mean, that synergy is huge. And now combine that with the synergy that has since sort of evolved since his debut, where we had all those speedsters get their reworks. We've got Red Tornado out there. You've got Kid Flash. Like, I think he's got a lot to it. There's, of course, he's got parts of his kit that I don't think totally make sense. I don't understand necessarily the stun removal, although that may be more important with getting more stunners. It seems like every single month. But it does seem a little bit not cohesive with his kit. But no, I mean, for the damage he does, I just can't see him being C tier either.
Exactly. There's utility, there's control, there's damage. Like what more could you want from a character? So he's just not like Shiva fast, I guess. So
Yeah.
because of that, he gets bumped all the way down to C. But yeah, so do you have any more thoughts on Boomerang?
No, I think that covers it.
Yeah, okay. So let's move in to a character that I rebirth 5'd. And whatchamacallit, this guy, he had a very hyped kind of debut a little bit because everyone looked at his kit and they're like, oh, Red Arcus, let's go. And I was like, all I saw was silence, and I was like, okay, he's gonna get RB5. But whatchamacallit, the synergy with Ra's al Ghul and Hush is amazing. Love Hush so much because of the he uses silence to his advantage as in like a target. Like if someone is silenced, that's a target for Hush. He will attack them at the end of their turn and gain more mens because of it. And he basically turns into a better version of Bane and like a slightly weaker version of Arcus. And honestly, no one needed another Arcus. I'm okay that he's slightly weaker because that's a more balanced character.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on Hush?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. My only concern for Hush right now, I don't think he's a C tier character. I think he, again, I think WROL is just extremely biased against silence tunes. I think across the board they hate it. They, each one of them kind of individually has told me that they think it's like a weak debuff, which is fine. But in general, I think my only concern for him right now is that Superwoman is here, and if she winds up outclassing him, I think a lot of people could use them together very successfully.
Agreed. I will be doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you do. I just, when you've got two very high damage red characters, both attacking the same debuff, you wonder, if there's room enough for both of them. But I think that they'll do really well together. But he is super annoying to face on defense. And I don't know if it's because you don't see him at all. And so whenever you see a character that people are unaccustomed to, you like forget how to handle them. But he's not somebody you necessarily want to leave for last. His awareness is super annoying. He's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve.
Agreed. He's very true to the Hush character, in my opinion. But
yeah.
So funny story actually about the WROL thing. So Hate Mail and Joker did a recording once for their Patreon, where they kind of go over how they decide. They look at the new kits, and they're like, okay, what's good and bad, and what should we suggest about these kits? And they did that over Indigo 1. That was the kit they chose to go over, and Indigo had a silence in her kit originally. The devs put a silence in her kit passively, like so. When you hit her, she calls assist and applies 2 strength downs to the person who hit her. Those strength downs used to be a silence. And they personally suggested to get rid of it. I kind of threw a hissy fit about that because I was like, I was already going to put her on my Ra's al Ghul team. Why did you have to get rid of the silence? And so they never did that kind of video ever again because they knew someone would have a poor opinion of their decisions. And I was like, well, you shouldn't do stupid things like that.
Somebody just posted what their suggestions were for the Dark Side kit, and I saw that heal immunity was taken out in favor of Doom, and I can't justify that by any sort of means in the world. So, people make mistakes.
They do, but that mistake would have been like, if that had never happened, that would have been so amazing for my team. And there's a reason why Indigo 1 is still sitting at Rebirth 1. Also because WB just will not fix her final bug. Like they're basically refusing at this point. But whatever, that's fine. She's C tier too, so whatever. She's a great sport character, but I'm not gonna put effort into a character that's not 100% where it should be. But yeah, Hush is honestly an amazing character. He works wonders at Rebirth 5. Let's go ahead and move into a character that used to be A tier and might have had a short stint in S tier. I can't remember if he ever was S tier. But Man Bat is an amazing character who is basically the Black Manta of disease, and that is a quote directly from Loot himself. So, like, it's weird that he's in C tier because Loot had such a high opinion of him. He's kind of slow. He's very tanky, and he has out of turn attacks that cause a shit ton of disease. So I'm not sure why he's sitting in C tier, but what are your thoughts on Man Bat?
I can't. This is the one that I don't use him that much, but it absolutely boggles my mind. Like, I understand that they will start with a tune in A tier, and then perhaps other tunes are introduced such that because of his age, if it's power crept or whatever, that it will slowly drop the value of their kit. I don't think the value of his kit has changed at all. This one just is so strange to me. He's completely crit immune, extremely tanky, and just applies so much disease to a point where, like, he can single-handedly turn an entire match once that disease starts spreading around. So this one just truly baffles me. Again, it's not. I'm not like standing up for some sort of character that I love, and it's like how dare they? This is a character I don't really use, but he is one that if you see him on defense, you absolutely have to plan for. You need some sort of high damage green or a debuffer on your team, a purger, whatever you can do to combat him. And the fact that he's so low is just, I don't understand it.
I think their main reason is because shortly after his debut, Lex came about, and then Arcus came about, and then all these heavy damage greens came about, and Martian Manhunter is another one. But I don't think their existence should reduce his value. You just have to plan for them now.
Right.
And like Martian Manhunter is an invisible character, right? So he being on the enemy team is actually kind of a detriment with Man Bat there because Man Bat can now apply like 8 or 9 diseases to you.
Yeah.
Because of that one invisibility. So, whatchamacallit, I think that his his worth in disease is probably like a minimum B tier, but should definitely still be in A tier. But either way,
I agree. Just way undervalued in my opinion in this particular one. He is a Justice League Dark guy now, so I guess I could have more of an affinity of him than I'm letting on. But he's not in the game as Justice League Dark. So
no, he's not. But there's another character that you really enjoy that I've grown accustomed to as well. Actually, you were the one who suggested pairing this character with Impulse, and wow, was that a game changer! But Poison Ivy, sitting in C tier, don't know why. She's probably one of the most interesting support characters in the game. What are your thoughts? You've probably got a lot of those.
I mean, my thought is she's just super fun. Like when I think of characters that I love, like almost like solving a puzzle or like actually playing the game. I think a lot of the WROL list is geared towards just kind of setting it on auto and walking away and coming back to a victory. Ivy is a tune that you can't really do that with because the AI is not going to make the smartest decisions with her. But if you use her, you can do brilliant things. We have so many tunes now that have permanent buffs, and she can spread them to your entire team 6 times. You can set yourself up 100% on defense because you've just used Ivy for all those things. She is one of 2 tunes in the game. Her and Constantine, I think, are the only 2 that have a directed taunt, such that you don't have to bring a taunter if you can get to Ivy. A lot of people have been knocking some of these very, very high HP tunes, including like Mr. Miracle this month, and saying like that guy is a tank, but he doesn't taunt. Well, if you bring Ivy, now he does taunt. She's just got so much utility. She was one of the first ones to do the whole send the debuffs back at the enemy, which has become really, really popular with Doom. Sending that back when there's only one turn left on it, or bleeds or disease or that kind of thing. Just a ton of utility. And again, just for me, her sheer just like fun value of planning. She's got 4 moves. I think she's a very high level character. And I think the only reason she's so low is because she's support. When you look at the tier list as a whole, support tunes are on the bottom half, and your high damage, on their own team tunes tend to be at the top.
Yeah, I argued with them once about support characters not being S tier, even though some of them are like necessary. Like Red Robin was there for a while, which is nice, but he was the only one.
Have an S tier that's a support is Donna Troy, and I don't even think she belongs in S tier anymore. So
I wouldn't even consider her a support. I just call her a tank and call it a day.
Yeah.
But back before all these like high-powered greens came out, Ivy was actually quite tanky and hard to kill. In fact, she like 1v4'd me once. Like my characters were fairly low health when all the rest of her team died, but like the bleeds that she gave out passively and her ability to just keep herself alive was so annoying that I lost a couple fights because of her. She's not as tanky anymore, but she still has a lot of great utility. And you did suggest to put Impulse and her together to get those evasions, those permanent evasions all over the place. And I did that a couple of times. There was actually one fight that was a very, very long fight, but I won because all of my characters were at 100% HP because Impulse got his 2 evasions like almost immediately, and I copied them across the team, and nobody ever got hit, and I kept copying all of the evasions like as soon as that ability was up again. For some reason, I was up against a very tanky team that just would not die, so I had plenty of time to do this, but at the end of the match, I had like 60 evasions that were permanent on all of my characters. I felt like all of them were Cassandra Cain permanently.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and she enhances meta characters even further. Like if you're Black Flash, you probably don't necessarily need Ivy, but at the same time, she can now copy permanent speed ups to your entire team such that you will be moving faster than them, bar none. Like normally people using Black Flash, if they do it right, the other team doesn't get any moves. Well, now there's no question about it. For me, she is how I was able to eventually beat the initial PvE run. I was using Ivy with Flash, who at the time, this is pre-rework Flash, but copying his speed ups to the team is how I was able to beat the game, basically.
Wow. That's pretty smart. That's actually pretty fucking awesome, not gonna lie. If anyone's new to the game, I highly suggest Ivy as one of your firsts. So let's go ahead and move on. We've got a lot of characters to go through. Do you want to talk about Rose, or should we just move on to Riddler?
You could skip Rose. I'm not opposed to that. I'll briefly on Riddler. I mean, his kit does have a little bit of contradiction going on too, but I love his taunt on the enemy team. It's one that you can combine to use with other characters to really great effect. So Riddler throwing taunt on the enemy team. If you've got Man-Bat on your side, you've just added 8 disease to their side. With Killer Croc, amazing move. He makes the Dark Knight viable by that move. Everybody knows now about his utility in raids, about how he provides so many debuffs down, agility downs, intelligence down, that kind of thing. And he does that in PvP too. So, I think the knocks against him, he does have a low HP pool, but he almost always has 1 awareness at all times. So he's got a couple things, not necessarily perfect in his kit, but when I compare him to some of like what I see as the physicals in B tier, I look at it and I think, no, he definitely has as much or more utility. And again, he's a toon that is being knocked because he does not have super high damage. But I've 1v1'd Bane with Riddler, no problem, because of just the way his kit is laid out.
That's amazing. I recently have also kind of dived into Riddler as well because there was an episode I did a while back where I just wanted to show off his basic skin, so I like skin changed him in the video to show him shirtless a little bit. But little things like that just kind of reignite interest for me. And whatchamacallit, I brought him a couple fights just to PvP recently, and I was like, wow, like the taunt move, like you said, just opens up so many doors. Where like, oh, I'm worried that like if say you're fighting an Azrael team and Azrael has a taunter on his team, so you put the taunt on Azrael. So if there is someone that's gonna taunt, you still have a way to fight Azrael and
Right.
get rid of him early before he kills everybody. So I really like that aspect. The debuffs are so nice to have. Like I said, I'm a very debuff centered player. That's like my favorite type of play style. I like some out of turn attacks too, but whatchamacallit, Riddler is very fun. Either way.
Yeah, super fun. I have him RB2. I've kind of redirected a lot of my tokens towards Mystics lately, but Riddler is one of my like all-time favorite villains. I'm always gonna, have an eye towards him. And if he ever does get a rework, I think he can be extremely potent, like move from what should be B tier to like high A tier very easily.
Agreed. But let's move into another character that I plan on eventually rebirthing. So Amazo. He came out on a month where I decided to finally like do my best to stop spending as much as possible. And I did decently well that month. I still have enough to RB1 him, but that is actually like way cutting back for me sometimes. But he's a very good disease character. He pairs very well with Ra's al Ghul. Like the two like together spread so much disease that you might lose a toon or two, but like your enemy is going to die out before you, essentially. I don't think that they gave him the correct kit, like gear wise. Also, I guess kit wise.
Yeah.
With his disease retaliation kit, he should have been a tank because that would have made so much more sense. But
Right.
With his kit, his abilities, they probably shouldn't have been disease centered either. So either way, his current kit is good. I really enjoy it. I don't see why he's C tier. Probably just because he's slightly squishy. That's probably the only reason, because he has amazing crowd control. He has a stun, a lot of debuffs. He can steal buffs. He can heal. He can gain strength ups passively. There's so many good things in his kit, but because he's just a little squishy, he's automatically C tier. So I'm not a fan of that. But what are your thoughts?
My thought too is I think that he is being judged against the kit that people hoped or expected him to have, and he's never going to live up to that. It's like, okay, we get it. Amazo was supposed to copy everybody else's moves. We didn't know how they would incorporate that. They didn't know how they were going to incorporate that, and so they basically just skipped doing it almost entirely. And that's what he's being judged against. It's like his 8 S through trash tier list is against himself. And it's like, because he doesn't meet the expectations that were set up for him, he's a C tier too.
Yeah, pretty much. And I completely agree with you there. But that's pretty much all I have for Amazo. I just wanted to lightly touch on him. Another character though that I definitely don't think belongs in the C tier is Doomsday. Doomsday is an absolute monster. And like a lot of people won't think that right away because he can be easily killable and he takes a little bit of time to ramp. With the incorporation of Darkseid, though, with people like Black Mask, who also, by the way, earlier you said Poison Ivy and Constantine were the only people who could throw a taunt, but we forgot about Black Mask. I know.
That's right.
I'm just saying that because I know someone's gonna be in the comments, be like, Black Mask does it too.
Right.
Either way,
he's a Constantine copy, so that makes sense.
Exactly. With Black Mask, with Poison Ivy, with Constantine even, and Saint Walker, all those characters can throw the taunt on Doomsday, or call him to assist, or both, and get him to ramp up like insanely fast. Like I've gotten him to the point at RB1 or even L5 where Arcus is at the point where he can't even like touch him. Like Arcus could do his double tap taunt move and barely scratch him. And like Rebirth Arcuses could do that. And I'm just sitting here laughing my ass off because Doomsday is going to essentially outlast everyone on the enemy team. I'm just going to put it on auto and let Doom just do the rest of it for me. So, like, yes, there is a little bit of a gap where he's vulnerable, but once you're past that, it's endgame. And I feel like that's just balance. You know, that's a balanced character. That's not somebody that, like, a lot of people are going to be upset that Darkseid isn't going to be a like S tier character. Probably he's going to be good, but he's not going to be S tier. He's not going to be the best character. And Doomsday was kind of the same way. Like Doomsday is a powerhouse in the comics. Why isn't he in game? Well, because they actually balanced him. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my thought is you just put it exactly right, which is he takes a little bit of time to get going. And that is the exact reason why those guys, you know, Loot, if Doomsday is not doing stuff in the first 2 turns, then Loot doesn't care about him. And that's just not how you can play with him. He is somebody that needs a bunch of turns, and he is a slow character. So you need to make the turns happen for him. He's not an auto tune, same kind of thing. He's somebody that you have to pay a little bit of attention to. But if you give him that attention, he is unkillable. You know, he will take out every single other enemy that you've got. He will not take any damage, which is how he should be. But you do have to be willing to commit to like a 90-second or 2-minute match as opposed to your match ending in 15 seconds.
Exactly. And I feel like because you took the time, because you decided to like let your match take a little longer, there's probably a better safety net there. Like,
right.
If you're in a siege match, maybe not against Coda, but whatchamacallit, Doomsday might be a safer bet because long term he's going to do better. But I bet if you pair him with Raven, wow. Because she's going to protect him for that early bit. Either way, I just think that he's at least a B tier, potentially A tier if you want to consider his one vulnerability kind of just like a meh thing, but whatever.
Terrible Legendary. Absolutely horrible costume at Legendary.
That's fair. I think Doomsday actually should be one of the characters that gets a cool skin.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know where like the little goggles and everything comes from. I mean, I'm sure there's a comic reference for it. I don't necessarily know it, but it's a very odd look.
Yeah, and most people would argue that he's weaker because of the kryptonite like suit is kind of containing him. But even so, he should get a cool skin. I think that would actually, like, if you gave him more spikes or if you like gave him the ponytail that he sometimes is seen with, I don't know, he could have a cool design outside of his current design. That would be fun. Let's go ahead and move into Terra. You wanted to talk about Terra a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Terra to me is outside of like Steppenwolf. Terra is the ultimate anti-Batgirl and Harley team member. You know, I know that that's niche, but Invasion has never left like floating around the meta. You know, like even when Lex was at its peak, Batgirl was still kind of hovering around. And now that Black Flash is so popular, Batgirl is back in a big way. And there's a lot of people saying that they can't figure out how to deal with those Batgirl and Harley teams. And Tara is right there. She has all of her moves are directed at anti-evasion. I mean, it's crazy. She's got special damage, can't miss, 3 evasion downs on her basic. So it's like even when she's enraged, she's applying evasion downs and can't miss with that move. So that is just like a super, super awesome move. You know, I think her 2 is one of those, just kind of buff everybody. Her 3 is down to the whole team. I do wish her 3 was can't miss, but even though it's not, still really, really good. And she does decent damage. So I just, with Harley Quinn being as powerful as she is, I can't see her counter being C tier, basically.
Agreed. And after Harley's rework, she's going to be even more annoying.
Yeah.
Like they just fixed her to the point where she doesn't, like, her evasions actually work now, and that honestly kind of upset a lot of people. Like I know that you know, every tune should work the way that they're designed, but I think Harley has had her day in the sun. I think 90% of the people in the community were like, you know what? If Harley never gets fixed, that's probably fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Tara is definitely one of my go-tos against debuff counter teams. If I see a Black Mask, if I see an Ivy, I always bring Tara because of her meltdown is so awesome. And honestly, her meltdown is probably slightly bugged, but in a good way. Like, once I fully leveled it up, I have never seen it once attack my team. Despite the fact
Yeah.
that it says there's a 10% chance that my team will get hit, I have never seen it happen, ever. And I'm okay with that because Tara is underutilized as it is.
Right.
Like, if she was on Azrael's level, I'd be like, all right, we kind of need that to hit our team now. But she's not, so I'm okay with whatever. It's fine. And like, she purges all of the debuffs on her. Like, she only needs 6 to do it, but she purges all of the debuffs. She is
Right.
very anti-debuff for herself. So I think she's a great character. I think she might be a little squishy than she needs to be, but I also vehemently dislike her skins.
Yeah.
They could have definitely picked a prettier version of Tara, but that's fine. That's whatever.
Yeah.
Anything.
I think she's another one that's just kind of like a stat adjustment away from being really, really top tier, and being the answer that a lot of people are looking for Harley Quinn right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you already talk about if she gets enraged? I forget.
Yeah. Just I mentioned if she gets enraged, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
because I can't miss and evasion downs on her basic. So
Right. So let's go ahead and move into our final C tier character. Actually, no, we have 2 left. I'm sorry. Let's talk about Greenland or John Stewart first, because I RB5'd him, and a lot of people gave me flack for that shit. But let me tell you what. This man at Rebirth 5 solves all of his problems. Not all of it. He has one problem still that is relatively unsolvable. But this man at Rebirth 5 is a freaking powerhouse. And not just that, he's a support powerhouse. Like, Black Flash can take him down to half health fairly simply. Like, if he's L5 versus RB5, if L5, he's probably going to die to Black Flash's AoE. But
Right.
At RB5, he's like 40% health. And that's literally exactly where I want him. Hit me, Black Flash. That's fine. I'll just go to 40% health, and then the rest of my team will start benefiting from the fact that I'm at 40% health. If you brought Green Lantern John Stewart and Wonder Woman Coda to the same fight, Coda will destroy everyone. Like, because she doesn't need a turn to destroy you. She will do it passively. And the buffs from Green Lantern John Stewart will only make her 1,000 times more scary. So I think those two are a pair made in heaven. And whatchamacallit? I don't see him as if you don't rebirth him, he's probably C tier. I'll give you that. But I just wanted to like kind of gloat a little bit that I picked a good character. But go if you have any thoughts, please, by all means.
No, that's fair. I mean, for me, when I use mostly blues, I generally don't have a problem with him. I will say he's easily dismissible. I mean, the only time I really see him is on bot teams. He's a mainstay of those bot teams, and I tend to like leave him for last. Because I'm like, who cares? It's John Stewart. And then like if you leave him with just a little bit of health, like all of a sudden he's doing a ton of damage, and you're just like, oh shit, like that is problematic for me. So he's one of those tunes where people are always looking for how can I get wins on defense, and I think John Stewart is one of those ways.
I agree with you. A lot of people, like you said, just kind of overlook him, but like if you just do under the amount of damage that you actually want to do to him, now you're screwed. Because unless you have
Yeah.
a way to purge his death immunity, or just keep him like subdued until it's gone, then which is, to be fair, it's fairly easy to do. But at the same time, now you have to deal with the rest of his team. And that's the scary part. Like he can destroy you himself, but if you're gonna make him indisposed, then his allies will hopefully do the job for him because he's helping them do that. So that's why I like John Stewart a lot. He's kind of like a mini boss now that he's RB5.
Yeah.
But either way, final C tier tune, and then we'll discuss who the best of both of the tiers are. Ultraman is our final one. I don't think he belongs there. He's the first person to have AoE buff immunity. He's got a taunt. He's like very good at transferring debuffs, just like you said, is popular right now. And he also attacks while he's doing it. So one of the very first like really good synergies that specific to a like specific set of characters, namely the villains. But all around amazing character. I don't see why he is C tier. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's C tier because, and he reminds me a little bit of Mr. Miracle this month, which is they excel when they're being debuffed, right? Ultraman does that, Miracle does that, Bizarro does that, and the amount of debuff teams that you face on the enemy side is not usually that strong. They're not as frequent as like the just buff. That's not something you see as often. It's like when you get those things, he does really well. I mean, that being said, he can on his own. He's got a really good taunt. He's got really high stamina. And he's another one of those tunes where I look at him and then I look at who they have placed in B tier, and I'm like, okay, he's easily as strong as like the greens that are in B tier. So that's where they lose me a little bit.
I can see that. That's a good point.
Yeah, we did skip one, which is Aqualad.
Oh shoot, I forgot about him.
Which just real quick on Aqualad, I think Aqualad is way better than C tier. Aqualad and Enchantress is an incredible combo. One of the things that people knock about Aqualad is his 2 skill. It applies almost no heal whatsoever. You really just use it for the damage immunity, but that is enough, even if it's almost no heal, that is enough to trigger Enchantress's passive. So you can apply, because he's usually one of the first tunes out of the gate, you can apply damage immunity to her, triggers her passive, all of a sudden you're off to the races in terms of your entire setup. So they work extremely well together. I love his passive, which so many people forget about, which is he has a built-in Brainiac passive, basically. If your ally is under, I think, 30% health, they can't get killed on retaliation. And we keep talking about her, but Harley Quinn is killing Toons via retaliation. And that is a really nice way to not have to worry about that. It's that flicker buff where it's just damage immunity on their turn, but it's like that gives you a little bit of solace. You're like, oh shit, I'm enraged, I'm about to die, and then you don't. So it's super, super nice. I also think he's got incredible synergy. My favorite pair is actually probably who he debuted with, which is Hawkman. The two of them together, the strength down combo, which lets Hawkman stun, is just phenomenal. So I think he's a really underrated Toon. I cannot world fathom how they would have someone like Katana in B and then Aqualad in C. I think I love Vixen. I RB5 Vixen. I think Aqualad is better than Vixen. I just, wow. That is just a very, very underrated option right there.
I think their thoughts on that is like, doesn't matter how cool or how good the character's kit is, if they have a low health pool, automatic C tier. Like,
probably, yeah.
They did the same thing to Amazo. They did the same thing to Freddy. I could probably list off like 18 more characters in the C tier of the same exact like dilemma. But
he's actually like in the top third of health pool though.
But he still falls apart. Like you can get sneezed on by a red and he's dead, essentially.
Yeah, that's true.
If you don't use that heal on Enchantress, you have to use it on him because essentially he will die if you don't.
Which is, I mean, using that in general with Enchantress is great too because she gets the turn meter. So it's like, no matter what, using that with Enchantress has been really effective. I noticed it a lot more in the last day because the bonus tunes for PvP. It was Shiva, Aqualad, and Lex. And I was running those three under Enchantress. And it would be Aqualad goes first, Enchantress goes second, and Lex goes third, basically, after Shiva. And they all heal. So I would do 3 Enchantress AoEs in a row.
Huh. Fuck yeah. That's awesome.
So it's fun.
That's pretty lucky, though, to be fair. Yeah. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think that his strength conversion is also just extremely useful. Sorry.
So good. Cheetah teams against Wonder Girl. I think he'll come back into play with Coda. I think he's got a lot of viability as strength ups seem to be in every kit every month. It seems like
it does. It's honestly everywhere. The Stargirl and Aqualad combo can essentially neuter a strength team, despite the fact that they're both pretty squishy. But yeah, Aqualad has a lot going for him. The only negative I see is his lack of health, and that's really it. Yeah. Completely agree with you. But let's ask the question: who do you think is the best trash tier character?
Best trash tier. To me, I would say easily Raven. To me, that she's B, low B, at the worst to me, potentially high B. I think she's a very good Toon, and I can't see her that low.
Okay, so I should have asked this. Let's start with the top 3, and I'm gonna give you one that I think for every affinity. I'm gonna say Raven as well. I think she just slightly outclasses Blue Beetle.
Okay.
My physical affinity, I would say the Atom, because I think that his debut was just honestly just a poor first impression. And for energy, I'm gonna say Captain Atom, because he has the damage. He's very much like Freddy, where he has the damage. He just doesn't have like really anything else. So I think Captain Atom is good, especially with his heal immunity on his third ability, which is pretty much a nuke as it goes. So those are my top 3. Since you already kind of talked about Raven, who's your other 2?
Yeah, definitely Raven. I agree wholeheartedly on Captain Adam as well. I think he's really underrated. I think he got put so low because he debuted a brand new mechanic, Disease, and doesn't get to do enough of it. So I think that was kind of why he got put so low. But no, I think he's a really effective tune. Physical is tough. I haven't played enough with Adam to say that he's super underrated, but I think Two Face does massive damage if left unchecked, and I'm more sensitive to that. Running blue teams, I can see which reds are really kind of putting the works to me, and Two Face. You don't see him that often, but when you do, he can really change a match.
His AoE has one shot, many blues for me.
Absolutely.
Like before the last siege that he was a bonus tune for, I had really high opinion of him back then. And I hadn't used him in a while though, and I think I did the siege siege prep video that I normally do, which I still haven't done for March, which I need to do. Um, I did a fight or two with him in it, and he just did very poorly for me. And then after the video, I practiced a little bit more, and his utility was sporadic at best. So I think he's just been power crept. Honestly, like I still love the character, and I hope that when he does get a rework eventually, hopefully this year, they take away the 50 this or 50 nothing, and they give him 50 this or 50 this.
Right.
Like X or Y, not X or
Yeah.
nothing.
I think the reason he's so low is he's confusing. Like, you have to remember who he is and what he's doing every turn in order to make the most of him, and it's a lot to do. You kind of have to babysit him a little bit, but I think when you do it right, gosh, he does a ton of damage.
And he's also just super fun because of that exact reason. He's a very unique character, having two personalities. But what about? Oh wait, no, you already mentioned energy. Okay, so yeah, I would agree with those three as well. I think, I would probably agree with you that Raven is probably the best trash tier character. Sadly, I wish it were Two Face, or I wish it were the Atom, but I think I wholeheartedly agree with you that it's Raven. But now let's ask the same exact question. Let's do our top three before we say it this time. I should have said that last time, but favorite or not favorite, best C tier character.
So this is where, excuse me, the audio kind of gets jumbled up a little bit, and it really didn't make sense to me, so I had to delete all of it. But essentially, we both decided on our what we thought were the best C tier characters, and mine was Doomsday, and Mr. Zubaz's was Man-Bat. But essentially, that's all you missed, really.
Do you have any final thoughts for the viewers?
No, final thoughts is one. I guess stop ragging on silence and use it for yourself and see how awesome it is. And two, just think about synergy. Just have fun. Play with who you want. Play with your favorite characters. Don't worry about what the tier list says. Just God, go have fun.
Agreed. I think that this is my biggest dilemma with PvP and Wraith in general, is that if you're playing just to see 3 stars across your screen, and quickly, then you're not really enjoying it as much. Like if you're only building the meta and you're trying to get high ranked in PvP so you can get shards for a character you'll never use, then what's the point?
Yeah.
So I just think about that kind of stuff when you're picking your team, guys, because there's plenty of characters in these bottom low tiers that are absolutely viable and enjoyable to use. So with that, I think we'll say our adieus. So if you enjoyed this video, please give me that thumbs up or subscription.